So I was hiking today, and I received something while I was hiking and shared some of it as it was kind of happening with Heather, and just kind of ruminating with it more as driving home. I feel strongly inclined to attempt to articulate the things that are kind of coming into my head, and so what I received was, the human body is a manifestation machine. We're in this game, whatever you want to call it, reality, this energetic thing that we're in, and somehow all these things come into play, and we have all these stories about gods and demons and all these things that are out here, and everything's trying to get you and everything's trying to pull you, this, that, the other. But the reality is that we are manifestation machines. That the human interface is the mechanism by which the consciousness that exists manifests and perpetually creates reality around us. We are God creating reality. Each one of us is God creating reality with our thoughts that turn into speech, that turn into actions, and those actions manifest reality in the world. And that is why in all the spiritual teachings, particularly I'm most familiar with the biblical teachings, where we are exhorted to be quick to think but slow to speak and slow to wrath, and to guard your tongue. In the book of James it says that the tongue is the most powerful thing in the entire world, that it creates wars and it creates peace. And in Revelation it says that we're judged by every idle word that comes out of our mouth. And though I'm not pretending any literal implications, but this, that, and the other, but there's a transcending theme within the understanding of spiritual things that the tongue is very, very powerful, and it needs to be kept in check. It needs to be kept under control because it can create wars and kind of do whatever it does. Coupling that with the idea, at one point in one of the Gospels, Yeshua says, "Do not worry about tomorrow." He's like, "Why do you worry about tomorrow?" He says, "Sufficient for the day is its own concerns." And he was expressing the reality of the perpetual now, that there is no such thing as a past and there's no such thing as a future. The past is a fantasy that we've collected based on the things that we paid attention to, and we have a narrative that we exist in, that we feed out of, and then we imagine whatever we're feeding out of through that narrative of our remembrance. And we're not living in the present. We're remembering the past and imagining the future while neglecting the reality of the power that we have right now in the perpetual, persistent, creative now. And so how it works that we are manifestation machines is that we are resonating at a particular frequency. All the quantum physics and all the stuff that we're learning and understanding about the vibrations and the frequencies and the way the waves work and the way sound, all this stuff about manifestation and seismology and then sacred geometry and all these things like that, all of those things that's all this notion, this idea that everything is resonating and vibrating. And it is the vibrations that create the structures. That's what the seismology is showing us. That's what string theory is about. That there are little unseeable strings that are vibrating everything into existing. And the reality is that those vibrations are coming from us. And we are in a perpetual state of creation. Every single human being is in a perpetual state of creation. All we can do is manifest. And how we manifest is by speaking and doing the things that are programmed in us to do. And it's very easy to manifest low vibrational negative things into the world, because that's where we're at now. That's where we're at now, is everything's negative, everything's a fight, everything's a choose this or choose that, or you're wrong, and it's a perpetual negative battle. And so when I said in the last one that humanity has lost itself, we're stuck in this low vibration. And we're reacting to these lower base emotions constantly. And every time you say something and every time you do something that is motivated by those negative forces, you are literally pouring energy and reinforcing that negativity into the world. And this whole notion of manifestation and spiritual ascension, the whole notion of it is that you are manifesting every time you say a word. Every time you speak something, you are either adding something to the world or reinforcing something that's already there. And because we live in the past and we plan for the future, we are taking things that already exist and we're reinforcing it. And in a lot of ways, we're doing it in a very negative way. Because we're not living in the present moment, because we're not sufficient for today's concerns, we are unable to create and develop cohesive, productive things right now because we're pulling out of the past and imagining for a future that doesn't exist yet. So the idea is that through the healing of our traumas and through our triggers and through all these things, we learn how to raise our vibration to get out of these perpetually negative habits. And as we can raise up out of those negative habits and negative thought processes that turn into negative words and negative actions, as we can heal from that and get out of that, we start thinking in a more positive, more loving, more considerate, more compassionate way. And then we naturally start manifesting that because that's the energy that's in us now, and you're now projecting that into the world, and you're now reinforcing that into the world or creating new beautiful things. And I believe the way that we do that is you have to find some way to get inside of yourself and heal all those triggers. Because what we're experiencing in those states of heightened emotions, where we're experiencing triggers, something happens and it turns something on inside of us, and then we become consumed with that. That is the notion of spiritual possession. That is, the spirits are the energy that is attached to the strong emotions that are burned into our subconscious. That's what spirits are. And when you overcome the devil, you're overcoming yourself, because the devil lives inside of you. The devil is all that darkness that's buried away that hasn't been dealt with. And the way that you deal with that, the way that I dealt with that, and the way that I am dealing with that, is that I understand what the triggers are. The triggers are the red light coming on. And what we need to do is, when those triggers happen, instead of validating ourselves, instead of beating ourselves up, instead of taking any negative toward that, you identify the trigger, you identify when the trigger happens, and then you start to ask it questions. You start to ask where it came from. You sit with your feelings. You sit with your feelings, and as long as it takes, you do it until you, whatever, and then you go on with your life and you carry on. Don't hyperfixate on things. Don't obsess about things. Don't try to be perfect. Deal with the triggers when they arise. Whatever trigger you can notice, start realizing that that's what's going on, that you are interacting with a program that is not helping you or anybody else when those negative outbursts are taking place. So the thing is you got to address those head on, and you got to sit with them. And if you sit with them long enough, they'll tell you what's going on, because it's all information. It's all energy and information all around us. And if you ask, you will receive. If you knock, the door will open. And if you seek, you will find. That's how it works. That's how the game unfolds. And if we can each go in at our own pace and at our own time, having compassion on everybody else around us, and start dealing with all these triggers and raising our vibrations, we are going to naturally begin to manifest new and beautiful creative things, and allow that old stuff to just go away, because it won't exist anymore, because it's not getting any more energy. That is the new heavens and the new earth. That is the second coming of Christ, when there is enough high vibrational influence to create a new reality in the world. And that's what we're doing. I hope that helps.